What would happen if we tried to optimize a D&D character build for saving throws? Just how high could we get our bonus to saves if we really focused on it? Could we get advantage on all of our saving throws? What other kinds of things could we do to bolster them and still make a viable, effective character in combat? I hope you'll join me today as we try to answer those questions. Welcome to D4. Hey everybody, so here at D4, every week I take a deep dive into character builds for my favorite role-playing games. I like to crunch numbers about them, I like to theorycraft about builds, not to tell you the right way or the best way to play a character, but to explore one potential way to build something, in the hopes of creating a character that's both really fun, but also really powerful to play. So if you also enjoy creating characters for your favorite role-playing games, or if you're looking for tips or ideas on how to build something you're thinking about playing, or if you enjoy theory crafting too, then welcome home. This is where you belong, and I'm so glad that you're here. So thanks for watching. My name is Colby. Right, so anyone who's been watching my channel for a while knows that I love me some tank builds. Characters who protect their allies by trying to redirect enemy fire towards themselves while building their character to make themselves super hard to kill. They're really fun to play, I think, letting you channel your best, like, get behind me energy while shrugging off attack after attack. It just makes you feel kind of invincible. Cue the title screen for the show, which Nox has got me watching recently, actually, and it's really good. And so now I get the joke. Makes you feel invincible and powerful, even if you're not necessarily doing tons of damage. You know, let your squishy allies worry about that. You're here to keep them alive, right? But here's a dirty little secret about most, not all, of my tank builds. They tend to be really, really great at surviving forever if enemies are just making attacks against their armor class. But a lot of the time, they're not particularly good at dealing with things that might target their saving throws. And while, sure, most enemies in D&D are targeting our armor class, right, there are plenty of enemies out there who are doing things to force a save. Sometimes failing that save doesn't hamper you too much, but other times it can be downright catastrophic. If you want to see this play out a bit in game, look no further than the one-shot that I did with my friend Chris, Treantmonk, and the Dungeon Dudes, Kelly and Monty, a long time ago. I think we were celebrating my 30K subscriber mark. Kelly built this fantastic artificer character who could, with the shield spell, get their AC up to a 31, if I remember right. And as the DM, Monty made a few attacks against him, sure, but I think most of the enemies kind of decided to either ignore him after maybe an attack or two, or yes, started targeting his character with devastating saving throw spells and abilities, which Kelly had a much harder time dealing with. Now, this is not to say that I think Kelly's character wasn't a good, solid build. It was, and I also don't really blame Monty for, like, metagaming here or anything. I think it's perfectly reasonable that any enemy with at least a smidgen of intelligence at least might decide to ignore the not very hard hitting but incredibly hard to hit character and instead focus on others, especially after one or two failed attacks. All of this is a way for me to lay the groundwork of what I want to build today. A supporty, tanky character who actually prioritizes their saving throws over everything else. If we really focused on being super fantastic at saves, just how saving throw proof could we get? With this goal in mind, I'm going to give myself 3 priorities for this build. Number 1, get as many bonuses to my saving throws as is reasonably possible. No, I'm not going to be able to get them all, especially if I want to have a character that's fairly viable in game, right? And isn't just good at saves and nothing else. So this means pumping up the flat bonuses to my saves, yes, but also trying to get advantage on as many saving throws as possible and even finding some on-demand options to bolster saves as well. Priority number 2, get resistance to as much damage as possible so that if I do fail a save or otherwise take damage, it won't hurt as bad. And then 3, try to keep my armor class up as best I can, though acknowledging that might come at the expense of priorities number 1 and 2. with those priorities in mind, yeah, I'm going to call this character a tank, but in reality, it's like they're more a support character who is tanky and who does some stuff to protect their allies. I'm not, though, for the record, going to prioritize getting like a soft taunt that I usually go for on my tank builds, something that gives disadvantage to enemy attacks when we hit that enemy, right? We'll have some solid ways to discourage enemies from going after our allies and otherwise protecting them, but we're also going to be really good at buffing and healing too. So this feels like a bit of a support tank hybrid. But when it comes to crunching numbers, yeah, I want to compare them to other tank builds just to see what prioritizing saving throws over armor class might look like. How much worse will the numbers look here if I make saving throws my first priority and AC my second? You ready to find out with me? Okay, I proudly present D&D build number 216, the Treantmonk. I mean, how could I not name it that? And no, this is not because we're going to be a treant or a monk, or because I necessarily think that Chris would want to play this build in-game, but because Chris, as everyone knows, as he so often says in his videos, loves making his saving throws. So this is an homage to him. Thanks for the inspiration. Huge thanks to my good friend Randall Hampton for the fantastic artwork that he put together for this build. I love this. This is a very sort of cute, but maybe slightly curmudgeon-y tank that we've got going here. Very apropos, I think. If you'd be interested in seeing the other stuff that Randall does, or potentially reaching out to try and commission him to create some art for your character or your entire party even, I will put links in the video description as always on how to do so. And we don't have a sponsor for the video today, so let's just jump right in. Level 1, for our starting class, we're going to start Paladin, surprising no one. Yes, on a build prioritizing saving throws over everything, we want to get Aura of Protection. I love Pallies, I can't get enough of them, let's go. But as for our species, for the first time in D4 history, we are going with, you guessed it, that so oft ignored species, the gnome. Man, 215 character builds and not a single gnome in sight. What a tragedy. But yeah, gnomes get the pretty fantastic gnomish cunning feature, which just straight up gives advantage on all of our mental saving throws, intelligence, charisma, and most importantly, wisdom. That's half of our saves getting advantage now, and I love it. For our background, I'm gonna say go with an old or custom one if you can or want to, as usual, but if not, merchant will work just fine since it gives us the ability score increases we want as well as the origin feat, namely lucky. But this is not so that we can have advantage on an attack roll, proficiency bonus times per day, but of course so that we can have advantage on saving throws, proficiency bonus times per day, which is really what we should always be using our luck points for anyways, as everybody knows, except this guy apparently. For our ability scores, starting off here, I assume the point buy method as always and say let's go with a 15 strength, a 13 constitution plus 2, a 12 dexterity, and a 15 charisma plus 1. I mean, okay, yeah, there aren't really any half charisma feats that I want, but there is a half constitution feat that I'd like to, in fact, and a half strength feat, so here we are. Dumping wisdom and intelligence. Ouch. What can I say? Pallies are mad. You could lower your dexterity for a better constitution, which was my initial plan actually on this build, but for reasons that will become clear later, having at least a 12 dexterity will be super important. I wish I could have gotten it higher. At least we've got wisdom saving throw proficiency, starting as Pally 1, right? So that's helpful. As for starting equipment, let's grab, chainmail armor for now at least, a shield, and then just your favorite one-handed weapon. Let your decision on your weapon be guided by, well, I mean, what you most want to play with, of course, but also the weapon masteries that we get as a Pally 1. We get to pick 2, and the 2 that I would prioritize here, I think, would be Sap, so that when we hit an enemy, they have disadvantage on their next attack roll. It's not exactly a taunt, and it only lasts for like one attack, right? But it should help increase either your ally's survivability or your own. And there are some really cool weapons with Sap. Forget the longsword. Let's grab a flail, right? Or a war pick or a morning star. So awesome. For the other mastery, I think I would grab Topple so that you can force a saving throw or knock the enemy prone when you hit them, and that's just a really solid debuff to be throwing on a baddie, giving you and your melee allies advantage on attacks against them, right? Making them use half their speed to stand up and giving them disadvantage on their attacks, including on their opportunity attacks if your squishy friend wants to run away after you knock somebody prone. Super solid choice. We also get Lay on Hands at Pally 1, which lets us use a bonus action now, so nice, and a touch to heal or cure poison. We get 5 Lay on Hands points per Pally level, and each point restores 1 hit point, with 5 curing the poisoned condition. So very good. As a paladin, we also get spells right at level 1 now, and I would say, go with the usuals. Bless is going to be our go-to concentration to add a d4 to attacks, and saving throws. It's wonderful. I would also grab Cure Wounds to have another solid heal option, and maybe Divine Favor if we want to buff the damage that our attacks are doing by a d4 without requiring concentration. By the way, that will be important later. And maybe Searing Smite now for a nice bit of bonus damage on a hit that can also cause the enemy to take additional burning fire damage over time. You know who makes me burn with fire damage over time? My channel members and patrons. Why do I always gotta make the segue so steamy? Huge shout out to my channel members, my patrons, you guys. I could not do this without you, truly, especially as sponsors are sometimes fickle and YouTube ad revenue seems to be on a steady decline for the past 5 years. Thank you so much for your support. Everybody else, I would be so grateful if you would just consider joining as a member or a patron. There's links in the video description that kind of tell you about it. I give all of my membership perks to anyone who signs up at least the silver level or higher, and just ask that you pay what you feel it's worth and what you think you can afford. Those perks include access to the library of write-ups that I do for each of these builds, making it easier for you to recreate it yourself if you want, access to the community Discord server filled with lots of wonderful and hilarious people, and access to the monthly live Q&A hangout sessions that we do, which, by the way, I have started to make public now, just like a month after they've gone live. So you can find the playlist, I'll link it, that kind of shows those old Q&As. If you're not interested or don't feel like you can afford, supporting me in that way, that's totally fine. Just being here and liking and subscribing and all those things are also great ways to support me, so thanks. Okay, at level 2, Paladins get a fighting style, and I think if I were playing this character in-game, I'd probably go with the protection fighting style so that I could use my reaction to interpose my shield if an ally within 5 feet of me gets targeted by an attack, to give disadvantage to that attack and every other attack made against them until my turn. This is a fantastic tank option, right? But with an eye to the spreadsheet, I'm going to take defense here for the build today, and think it's a great option too if you want to go that route to give you a +1 to your armor class. As an aside, I see people in the comments get really angry with me for doing this sometimes, saying I'd probably go a different route if I were playing the build in game, but in the interest of exploring what's possible, I'm going to choose X instead. Just to reiterate, this is kind of how I do all of my builds, right? Trying to see just how far we could push the numbers if we were only focused on the numbers of whatever we're building for, damage, survivability, etc. And yeah, I always trust you guys to be smart. Think about where you might want to scale something back here or there in the interest of maybe being more well-rounded or versatile, or even just in the name of character concept. So if that makes you angry, I'm sorry if I shouldn't trust you, I guess. And yeah, again, I think defense here is a fine choice. I might take it anyways, depending on the makeup of the rest of my party. We also get Paladin's Smite now, which just says that we always have Divine Smite prepared and can cast it once per day as a bonus action. I still wish that it were just usable once per turn instead of costing our bonus action. I still wish it wasn't considered casting a spell, especially for this build, but we press on. At level 3, Paladins get Channel Divinity. We get 2 uses of Channel Divinity per long rest, now recovering 1 use on a short rest. That's awesome. We can either use it for Divine Sense, letting us detect fiends, celestials, and undead within 60 feet, or for an option that we get from our subclass, which we get at this level 2. And I think if you're looking for survivability, the best Pally subclass option is going to be the Oath of the Ancients. If Oath of the Crown worked as well as it did in Baldur's Gate 3, Take a Drink, then we'd want to go that route like I did here a couple of weeks ago. But I really love the flavor of the Ancients Paladin, the Green Knight, right? The nature lover. And yeah, they get some great stuff for survivability, so it's a bit of a no-brainer for us today. Since this is my first time using the Ancients Paladin with the 2024 changes, let's read the flavor text that WotC has written for them, shall we? Preserve life and light in the world. The Oath of the ancients is as old as the first elves. Paladins who swear this oath cherish the light. They love the beautiful and life-giving things of the world more than any principles of honor, courage, and justice. They often adorn their armor and clothing with images of growing things, leaves, antlers, or flowers, to reflect their commitment to preserving life and light. These paladins share the following tenets: kindle the light of hope, shelter life, delight in art and laughter. Oh man, for sure my favorite pally, conceptually at least. And for the record, I think I'd probably flavor this paladin as being particularly close to and defenders of, like, the giant fauna of the forest. You know, elk, wolves, maybe bears? Right, so as an Ancients pally, we first up get some extra oath spells, Ensnaring Strike and Speak with Animals here. Those are thematically appropriate, sometimes useful, but then we also get a second use for our channel divinity, Nature's Wrath, and this is so incredibly improved from 2014. It says that we can use an action to force every creature of our choice within 15 feet to succeed on a strength save or be restrained for 1 minute, repeating the save at the end of each of their turns. That is some pretty fantastic control potential there. Restrained enemies can't move, have disadvantage on their attacks and their dexterity saves, and all attacks against them have advantage. That'll keep your party safe for sure, as well as help your enemies get dead. The old version of this only worked on a single enemy within 10 feet, and the enemy got to choose if they wanted to make a strength save or a dex save. Ouch. Yay for 2024. At level 4, we get our first general feat, and though there are about 1 million feats that I would love to have, I think the first one that I would take would be Shieldmaster, actually, for a couple of reasons. First, because it's a strength half feat, bumping our strength to 16 so that we can more reliably land our attacks and, sure, have better strength saving throws. And no, I have no plans to take the old Warlock dip for a Pact of the Blade today, for reasons that will become clear as we go. Also, the Shieldmaster feat is a huge bump to what is currently one of our weakest saving throws, which also happens to be a save that comes up super frequently for players, right? Dexterity. With Shieldmaster, you get like half of evasion. When a fireball comes your way or something like it, you can use your reaction to take no damage from it, instead of half if you succeed on the save, right? Interposing like your shield perfectly between you and the blast. It's super cool. I really wish that it would still give us half damage on a failed save, but maybe that would be too good. We also get to Shield Bash. If we attack a creature within 5 feet with the attack action and hit, we can immediately, no bonus action or anything, bash them, forcing a strength save to push them 5 feet back or knock them prone. It's pretty fantastic and means we can just focus on the sap weapon mastery now, since if we hit them, we can both sap and try to knock them prone, potentially, with this feat. It's really good. There's just a lot of offensive and defensive benefits for us. With the single feat, it felt like the clear winner for our first pick. At level 5, we get extra attack so that we can attack twice instead of once when we take the attack action, always appreciated. And then we also get Faithful Steed, which just says that we have the Find Steed spell prepared and can cast it once per day without spending a spell slot. And honestly, that's pretty awesome. Mounts are great. Lots of free movement, though sometimes they can be hard to fit in like a tight battlefield. And you know what? Since we are a small character as a gnome, it really annoys me that we can't choose to make our found steed medium-sized, because your mount just needs to be one size larger than you, right? If it were medium-sized, you'd probably be able to be mounted kind of all of the time in combat, regardless of how tight quarters you were fighting in, as long as the mount stayed alive anyways. I would 100% talk to my DM here and see if they would let my steed be like a mastiff or something. We also get second level spells here, and paladins get some real bangers. Aid to heal and increase the max hit points of 3 party members by 5, upcasting nicely. Lesser restoration to cure some nasty conditions. Prayer of Healing is fantastic now, taking 10 minutes to cast, but then giving a little heal to your entire party and the benefits of a short rest. Catnap says what? Your monks and warlocks will love you so much. Zone of Truth often comes in handy when interrogating bad guys, and then there's the best tank spell of them all, Warding Bond, which you place on your squishiest ally, raising their AC and all of their saves by 1 and giving them resistance to all damage, though when they take damage, you take the same amount, right? It's just the best way to really bolster the survivability of one ally, and that's exactly what we want to be doing. So yeah, I'd plan on having this up all the time. At level 6, though, we finally get Aura of Protection, one of the best abilities in all of D&D. Even a glass cannon lover like myself can acknowledge that. And yeah, a +3 now to every single save for us and for all of our allies within 10 feet, so long as we're not incapacitated, is amazing, and only makes me wish that I had a higher charisma. But at level 6, it is time for our first damage report. Alright. At this point, we're in a pretty solid spot for saving throws. We have proficiency in Wisdom and Charisma, so with Aura of Protection and with the Bless spell active, on average, rounding up, our saves are going to be +9 for Strength, +8 for Constitution, only +7 for Dex, but we've got half an Evasion with Shieldmaster to help us out there. Only a +5 for Intelligence, probably our weakest save, but we've got advantage on Intelligence saves as a gnome, and Intelligence saves are pretty rare for us as players, so that makes me a lot less worried. +8 for Wisdom with advantage, and +12 for Charisma with advantage. Our best save, right? It's too bad not many enemy abilities target Charisma, but hey, when they do, we'll be really happy. I will mention that, thanks to the lucky feat, we should be able to give ourselves advantage on a Strength, Constitution, or Dexterity save at least a few times per long rest, so that'll be a nice way to hopefully plug the gap if need be. As for our survivability otherwise, assuming non-magical plate armor and a shield, with the defense fighting style, our AC is only 21, which is great, but maybe not amazing compared to other tank builds that I've done to date, at least. And, assuming we've got the aid spell going and that, sure, we're using a bonus action to heal ourselves whenever we need to with Lay on Hands. We're the tank, we've got Warding Bond up. Let's pretend that we actually need to heal ourselves instead of our friends. Then our total potential hit points are going to be a pretty solid 87. As for how we calculate survivability for tank builds, I won't go into it as in-depth as I did for my last tank video, the Full Metal Abjurist. Check that here. Still probably the best name for any build I've ever done. But yeah, to summarize, I pit the tank against 3 hypothetical scenarios. A Deadly Encounter Dragon at this level, assuming a party of 4, right? A Deadly Encounter group of 3 or 4 kind of typical enemies, and then a level appropriate area of effect spell, usually Fireball. For 4 rounds, those enemies just go all out on our hero, including breath weapons and legendary actions if they've got them, in an attempt to take us out. I assume we've got all of our resources available for the fight if we need them. Then we calculate how much damage they would take per round on average. That's DTPR, damage taken per round, and how many hit points they'd have left at the end of those 4 rounds. That's HPR, hit points remaining. At level 6, this means we are going up against a young blue dragon, 3 trolls, and finally a DC 14 level 3 fireball. Just every round, fireball to the face. And so, against the boss, the dragon, we would on average take 22 damage per round, and that would leave us at the end of the fight with 1 hit point remaining. We barely survive. But against 3 trolls, it's a little uglier. 38 DTPR and a -64 HPR. And then the fireball is 5 damage per round, and that leaves us with 69 health at the end. So, not surprisingly, we're doing a lot better against saving throw damage than we are against attacks against our armor class, right? In fact, yeah, we're taking about half as much damage on average from that 10d10 lightning breath attack from the blue dragon as we are from 3 of their rend attacks made against us. So cross your fingers and hope they actually get to recharge their breath weapon, right? I only assume they're using it once in the 4-round encounter. But yeah, 4 fireballs to the face? Lol. I assumed that we used a luck point for 3 of the saving throws against that fireball, right? The 4th one stung a little more, but was still only 12 damage on average. And yeah, compared to other tank builds, we suck versus attacks against our armor class, and we're destroying everybody, for saving throws. Check the spreadsheet links in the video description every time to see those comparisons. And while sure, you could argue that this build isn't technically as good at being a tank as those others, we have fewer taunt-like abilities perhaps, we do still have a nice sap attack, a way to restrain multiple enemies, which is awesome. Compelled duel if we want it, right? And we are bringing a ton of great buffing support value to the party. So I really love where we're at. Let's keep going. At level 7, with Aura of Protection secured, I think it is time to do a little multiclassing. Yeah, I want more saving throw advantages, and I want to start getting some good damage resistances. So for us, that's going to mean, you guessed it, some levels in Barbarian. Now, why is your Paladin taking Barbarian levels? I think of all the Pally subclasses, going from an Ancient's Pally to Barbarian is probably like the smallest jump conceptually. Barbarians are often thought of as being wild, primal, and perhaps more in tune with the natural world than like other martial classes, right? That's especially true for the subclass we'll be picking up, but more on that in a sec. For now, as a Barbarian 1, we first up get Rage, our most important, but also maybe most detrimental in my mind, feature for this build. We can rage twice per day, and we recover 1 use on a short rest, just like Channel Divinity now. We rage as a bonus action. It lasts for 10 minutes as long as we're making attacks, forcing saving throws, or using a bonus action to just keep it going. Now, there are some serious drawbacks to raging. We can't wear heavy armor, and we can't cast or concentrate on spells. Pairing Pally and Barb is a lot less fun than it used to be with the smite changes, right? And I mean, we're taking the stat that's already suffering, our armor class, and making it worse. But I truly think going Barbarian is still worth the sacrifices. Rage gives us 2 more damage on all of our strength-based attacks, and yeah, that's why there's no Pact of the Blade dip on this build. It doesn't play nice if you're going Barbarian. You also have advantage on strength checks, and yep, strength saving throws. Nice. That's 4 saving throws we automatically have advantage on now. Best of all, of course, for us is that when raging, we have resistance to all bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, which is, yes, most of the damage we'll be subjected to in this game. Though we, of course, would like more. We'll get there. Don't worry. As a Barbarian 1, we also get unarmored defense, but this is a trap for us. It makes our armor class equal to 10 plus our constitution plus our dexterity modifiers if we're not wearing armor, but those stats aren't high enough for us, so stick with half plate now. Hopefully magical at this point. We also get to pick 2 more weapon masteries here, and I'll just say PYF, pick your favorites, grab the weapons that are showing up for you as cool magic weapons. Hooray for versatility. At level 8, we would be a Barbarian 2, and this was another big reason that I wanted to go Barbarian, because we get Danger Sense, and this gives us advantage on dexterity saving throws now, so long as we're not incapacitated. That means 5 out of 6 of our saves are made with advantage automatically. And unfortunately, as far as I know, there's no way to get advantage on Constitution saves. Weird, right? Concentration checks, yes, but just like all con saves, unless there's a magic item that grants it. Let me know in the comments if you know of one. Anyways, fortunately for us, we've got luck points that we can always reserve for Constitution saves if need be. So now we're like 100% covered for advantage on saving throws. And that feels awesome. We also get Reckless Attack at Barb 2. And for most builds, this is like my favorite Barbarian ability. But for this one, I'm slightly less enthused about it. So yeah, Reckless Attack just lets us decide to have advantage on all of our strength-based attacks, right? But at the very hefty cost of giving enemies advantage on their attacks to hit us. To be fair, part of being a tank means encouraging enemies to attack us instead of our allies, and this is one great way to do that, right? Giving them advantage on their attacks against us. On the other hand, like I've said, I envision this character as being like maybe support first, tank second, right? A tanky support. The biggest value we bring is in the things we do to like buff and heal our allies. Thank goodness Lay on Hands isn't considered a spell, so we can still be healing if we're raging. Being hard to kill is a nice and important benefit, and hopefully enemies are encouraged to attack us just to get rid of our auras and control and debuffing and buffing that we're doing, right? But if you need to give those enemies a little more encouragement to attack you, sure. I mean, to be fair, we do really want to land our attacks, right? Since we'll be using them to give enemies disadvantage on at least on their next attack and or knocking them prone. So yeah, having advantage on our attacks would be nice, but you know, we're not a massive damage dealer here. We do a D8 plus 5 with our non-magical weapon attacks. And we've got 2 chances to land a Vex on an enemy every round and then be able to shield bash him, right, to knock him prone. So I'm not going to assume that we're attacking recklessly when I crunch numbers. In reality, I have a feeling I'd probably attack recklessly like early in the combat encounter when I was at full health, but then back off once I got down to half health or so, maybe. And since I'm planning on having Warding Bond active, that might come quicker than you'd think, right? Oh, and maybe I should mention this here. As far as I can tell, yeah, the damage that we'd take from Warding Bond should be reduced by rage if that damage is bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing, right? Unlike other abilities in this game where you take damage instead of an ally, there's nothing in Warding Bond that says, like, this damage cannot be reduced in any way or anything. It's simply each time your ally takes damage, you take the same amount of damage. But I have to think that if it's bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage, we could have resistance to that damage if we were raging. I'm sure some tables may rule otherwise. Feel free to argue about it in the comments if you'd like. It doesn't actually affect the spreadsheets or anything, but I'd for sure discuss this with my DM if there was a question. Anyways, and that might become even more important next level, because at level 9, we would be a Barbarian 3. That means first up we get the cool new Primal Knowledge feature, which gives us another skill proficiency and says that while raging, we can use our strength for our acrobatics, intimidation, perception, stealth, or survival skill checks. It's pretty awesome. It's a little weird. Makes me happy that we've got a decent strength, though. Yeah, we're using our primal power. And this is a perfect segue into what we'll be taking for our Barbarian subclass. And yeah, we're going to go with the Path of the Wild Heart, formerly known as the Totem Warrior. And this is really going to help make up for the dip that we've suffered to our armor class, I think, right? Okay, let's read the updated flavor text here. Walk in community with the animal world. Barbarians who follow the path of the wild heart view themselves as kin to animals. These barbarians learn magical means to communicate with animals, and their rage heightens their connection to animals as it fills them with supernatural might. Yes, perfect synergy with our Green Knight Ancient's Paladin self. Okay. As a Wild Heart Barb, we get 2 features. Animal Speaker lets us cast Beast Sense and speak with animals as rituals. That's cool. But the big one, of course, is Rage of the Wilds, which lets us take on the primal power of an animal of our choice when we rage, and we get to pick which one we want when we rage, which is really awesome, right? We can kind of mix it up from time to time. Eagle enhances our movement. Wolf gives advantage to allies on attack rolls against enemies that are within 5 feet of us. I can see us using that sometimes if we're not as worried about our survivability for some reason. Maybe we're pretty confident that the enemies are just going to be doing bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage, right? But yeah, of course, I'm planning on going bear pretty much all of the time, since it gives us resistance to not just bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, but every damage type except, nerfed for 2024, psychic, yeah, but also now force, necrotic, and radiant. Don't worry, we're going to be okay. And I mean, that's still a whole lot of damage resistance. Just in time for our next damage report. Okay, since last check, we've unfortunately taken a dip to our AC, and also we lost Bless for a nice concentration spell. Here's hoping someone else in your party has it, but in return, we've gained advantage on more saving throws and resistance to almost all damage types in the game, plus some nice utility and a little more damage capability ourselves. Our AC in non-magical armor now is only a 19, and our hit points with aid and self-heals is a respectable 114. At level 9, we're going up against an adult white dragon, 4 wyverns, and a DC 15 level 5 fireball. Averaged over 4 rounds, then this is how those fights look. Against the boss, the dragon, our damage taken per round is 42, and that leaves us at the end of the fight with a negative 53 HPR. The typical fight is worse again. It's 48 DTPR, and that's a negative 77 HPR. And then the fireball is still just like 3 DTPR, leaving us with 104 hit points at the end of 4 rounds. Whew. Thank goodness there's something we can shrug off. And I mean, yeah, people, deadly fights with the new monster manual. I mean, the dragon's breath was negligible for us, but the fact that I was giving them 4 legendary action attacks against us every single round, plus the usual 3 that they get with a plus 11 to hit. Resistance is nice, but not getting hit is much better, right? And those wyverns, one of their attacks does 96 plus 4 damage, and that's just one of their attacks. And there were 4 wyverns. Whoosh. But hey, what are the chances that all of the enemies are just going to use all of their attacks every single round to just target you, right? Not great, unless everyone else is dead, in which case you've failed your job as a support character. It's all good. I'm still feeling confident that we're making good decisions here, even if you're not. Think about all the ways that you're helping out your team with your buffs and your debuffs and your control and your heals and your utility, and you're laying down some respectable damage for a support. Don't forget, you can get Divine Favor going on this build if you want to. That's an extra D4 of damage on hits too. It's not horrible. You might even have advantage on those attacks. So You are awesome. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. All right, let's keep moving forward. At level 10, I want to take one more level in Barbarian, making us a Barb 4, because I want that feat, right? I think I'm going to grab Resilient Constitution here to give us a 16 Constitution for more hit points, plus proficiency in Constitution saving throws to help bolster that important save. Alternatively, I can see us getting Resilient Dexterity here instead, and maybe tweaking our starting ability scores in that case so that we had like a 14 Constitution to start and a 13 Dex, which would now be a 14. It would help our armor class. I think with Shieldmaster though, I'd probably prefer to favor Constitution here, especially since, I mean, yeah, hit points are nice. Especially when you've got resistance to everything and are probably getting hit anyways, whether your AC is a 19 or a 20, right? But at level 11, I think we go back to Paladin, making us a Pally 7 because Ancients Paladins get Aura of Warding. This used to give us resistance to damage against spells. Now, it makes it so that our Aura of Protection also gives resistance to damage against necrotic, psychic, and radiant damage. And that's arguably worse, unless you're a bear barb, of course, because what did we have resistance to before? Everything but necrotic, psychic, and radiant damage? Voila. Oh, and force. Stupid force. Really hard to get resistance to force damage outside of a potion. I hope someone in our party has Tasha's Bubbling Cauldron so they can make you some of those potions just in case. The Dungeon Dudes talked about that in their awesome Fiendish Fury build recently. Check it out there if you missed it. Anyways, we've now got resistance to basically all damage in-game. Force is super rare for enemies to use against us, and that makes me happy. We've got advantage on basically all saves and resistance to basically all damage. Super cool. Okay, at level 12, we'd be a Pally 8. That gets us another feat, and I think I would just bump Charisma to 18 here. It's probably the best thing that we can do for like all of our saving throws, right? And especially for our allies. That said, I would love to have Mage Slayer. It would bump Dexterity or Strength, which we don't need quite so badly. At least not if we're, focusing on our saving throws. Gives disadvantage to enemy spellcasters on their concentration saves when you damage them, which is awesome. But then, best of all for us anyways, lets us auto-succeed on an Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma save that we fail once per short rest. And as cool as that is, I just kind of have a hard time believing that we would fail that save in the first place. Intelligence, maybe, but intelligence saves are so rare. I don't know. Go that route if you want. I kind of had a little, not argument, but talked this over with Chris actually yesterday when I was asking him for permission to name this build after him. And he was like, I hope you're getting the Mage Slayer feat. And I was like, I mean, I talk about it. It is really, really good. And, especially with all of our awesome bonuses to our saving throws, I can 100% imagine you wanting to kind of flavor this character like an anti-mage. That disadvantage to concentration is pretty potent from this feat, right? And I mean, who doesn't want legendary resistance on all of their mental saves once per short rest? Still, I'm going to assume we're bumping Charisma. At level 13, we would be a Pally 9, and that means we get Abjure Foes. This gives us another use of our Channel Divinity. It's similar to the Cleric's Turn Undead, but it works on any enemy. Sweet. It's a number of enemies equal to our Charisma modifier, another nice reason for bumping Charisma, within 60 feet of us, and if they fail a Wisdom save, they are frightened for a minute or until they take damage, and when they're frightened, they can only move or take an action or a bonus action. It's very strong. A nice option to have, especially if we think our enemies might have high strength saves, and so Nature's Wrath would likely fail, right? We also get 3rd level Paladin spells here, and we for sure are going to want Aura of Vitality, one of the best healing spells in the game that, while sure it requires concentration, can be a great way to heal 70 hit points of damage on average over a minute, like between combat encounters, right, when you're not raging. Daylight is great when you really need it. Dispel Magic, of course, speaking of being an anti-mage, right? Remove Curse is one of those like useless unless you need it, and then it's amazing spells that, maybe just consider swapping to after a long rest. Hopefully the curse doesn't kill your cursed ally before then. And yeah, Revivify, always nice to have just in case your heals can't save someone from death. But this brings us to our next damage report. I'm scared. Since last check, we've got a nice bump to our saves from our Charisma increase, gained Constitution saving throw proficiency and a few more hit points, and increased our damage resistances to everything except Force. plus picked up some nice additional debuff, control, utility, and support options. Our total hit points with an upcast aid spell and more lay on hands points now is 186. That's a nice increase. But our armor class is still 19, so let's see how we fare versus an adult red dragon, 3 bandit crime lords, or a 16 DC level 7 fireball. Eek! Against the boss, the dragon, it's 49 damage taken per round and only a negative 10 hit points. Oh, almost lived. So close. The typical fight, though, the bandit crime lords, 118 damage taken per round and a negative 285 HPR at the end of that. And then the fireball was, again, 3 DTPR and 174 HPR. So, yeah. If you can just tank 7 adult red dragon attacks to the face and a fire breath for 4 rounds and be like this close to surviving, come on. You're really hard to kill, unless you're fighting 3 bandit crime lords. They're each getting 3 attacks per round, people, and 1 attack does 14d6 plus 5 damage with advantage. Now, something I haven't been taking into account here is like whether or not the enemies might be restrained or frightened from our channel divinity, right? Or at least just sapped from one of our attacks. These things would help our survivability for sure, but it is hard to calculate how many of them would fail the save on round 1 in the case of our channel divinity, right? And then what's the likelihood that those who failed on round 1 would succeed on round 2, etc., etc. It's easier to just crunch the numbers straight. Of course, in a real fight, your allies are taking those bandit crime lords down one at a time, ideally, and are doing things to buff and or heal and or debuff. This is all lab work in a vacuum, right? I still feel like we've got a very solid build here. The question is, how do we finish it? At level 14, there are lots of options, of course, especially for a high charisma character. Maybe we lean into our support role and grab some bard levels. Inspire others so they succeed more easily on their saves, especially, in conjunction with our aura of protection. Pretty potent. In the interest of pursuing my stated goals at the beginning, though, of prioritizing my saving throws overall, let's see what would happen if we went sorcerer. There are actually some nice additional reasons to do so. Let's see what would happen. As a sorcerer 1, we would get innate sorcery, which gives a bonus to our sorcerer spell DC and gives advantage on our sorcerer attack spells, right? If we use a bonus action to buff ourselves for a minute. Not really something I'd be trying to build around with this build, but, occasionally useful, I suppose. But then we get some nice sorcerer spells. Of course, you're going to want to focus on the support and out of combat utility stuff, or things you can cast before combat that don't require concentration. Friends, light, mending, message, featherfall. I think I'd prioritize jump for increased movement and above all false life for some nice temporary hit points if you didn't have another source of them. That upcasts pretty nicely too. Oh, and would you look at that? There's the shield spell just sitting there in the corner laughing at us for being a raging barbarian. Jerk. At level 15, we would be a sorcerer 2, and that means we get Font of Magic. Our sorcery points, we get 1 per sorcerer level. They reset on a long rest, and we can use them to recover spent spell slots, or for meta magic, which we get right now at level 2. Awesome. We get to pick 2 meta magic options, and I think for maybe the first time in my life, I wouldn't suggest Quicken Spell. We're just not planning on casting spells in combat. So I'm going to say let's grab Extend Spell to double the duration of spells we might cast, like Aid, or Jump, or False Life, or Warding Bond, just to make sure that we've got them up when combat breaks out. And then I would maybe grab Subtle Spell, I think, so that we can cast a spell without components. It's handy in social or exploration situations sometimes, or sure, maybe to get a non-concentration buff going before combat breaks out without actually starting combat. Let me know if you think there'd be a better meta magic option in the comments. At level 16, we'd be a Sorcerer 3, and that means we get our Sorcerer subclass now, and of course, we're going with Divine Soul. We're a Paladin. What other option is there? But also, Divine Souls are just the best. 2 great features at this level. First, we get Divine Magic, essentially giving us access to the Cleric spell list as well as the Sorcerer spell list, which is wonderful, though to be fair, there is a lot of overlap between the Cleric and Pally spell lists, right? That's okay. The real reason we're here, of course, is for Favored by the Gods, which says that once per short rest, if we miss an attack or, yes, fail a save. Nice that we can wait to see if we fail first. We can add 2d4 to the roll, hopefully changing the outcome. We are rarely going to fail any save on this character, but just in case we do, this is a nice little insurance policy. We also get second level sorcerer and or cleric spells, right? And yeah, that means we could get guidance as a cantrip for some nice little 1d4 bonus to ability check utility. Healing word is another bonus action heal, but now from range if we need it in a pinch, though we'd have to drop rage if we were in combat, right? Sanctuary can be a nice way to help keep an ally safe. Augury is solid utility, as is borrowed knowledge, invisibility, locate object, misty step. I will kind of emphasize the mirror image spell here, which, I mean, is so good that we probably should have gotten it a long time ago. It's so much better now than it used to be. It's an action to cast, but no concentration required and lasts for a minute. Here's a good one to cast subtly before combat starts, maybe. It creates 3 illusory duplicates of yourself, right? And then when you get hit with an attack, there's a solid chance that one of the duplicates gets hit instead and is then destroyed. When dragons are making 7 attacks against you every round, absorbing 3 of those at least once in a combat encounter might be the difference between life and death. Of course, if the enemy has blind sight or true sight, they are unaffected by the spell. Stupid dragons. Oh well. Plenty of enemies don't have blind sight or true sight, so worth taking, I think. At level 17, sure, let's grab one more sorcerer level so that we can get one more feat, and finally here at the end, cap that charisma modifier for a +5 bonus to our aura of protection now, among other nice benefits. Or, sure, go ahead and take that Mage Slayer feat. But this is all just in time for our final damage report. Okay, since last check, we've capped our charisma, given ourselves a once per short rest 2d4 bonus to a failed save, and picked up a whole heap of utility, a little bit of survivability and support. With multiclassing, we've actually got a 5th level spell slot, another nice benefit to going sorcerer at the end there. Let's upcast Aid at the 5th level for a 20 max hit point increase for us and a couple of allies. And then we could cast False Life at the 4th level for 24 temporary hit points. Sure, why not? Our AC is still 19, but our total hit point pool is now 248. Most importantly, our saving throws, at least for a single save, right, assuming we've got Favorite of the Gods available, is, on average, a +13 for strength, a +19 for constitution, a +11 for dexterity, and we take no damage on a successful dex save, on those area of effect things at least, +9 for intelligence, +15 for wisdom, and +21 for charisma, with advantage on every single save. I'm going to say yes, even constitution saves, thanks to our pool of luck points. We got 6 of them now. And yeah, resistance to all damage except force. But how do we fare versus an ancient green dragon, 4 ice devils, or a DC 17 meteor swarm to the face for 4 rounds? Well, against the boss, we would take 81 damage per round, and at the end of 4 rounds, we'd have -76 hit points. But hey, at least we survived kind of right up to the end, right? They would have to use that 4th round to finish us off. The same is true against that typical fight, the Ice Devils. We would take 72 damage per round, and at the end of that, we'd have -40, so at least they took that 4th round to have to finish us. And then Meteor Swarm is still just 3 DTPR, which would leave us with 238 hit points after 4 rounds. I mean, come on. 3 average damage from Meteor Swarm? Advantage plus Shield Master plus Favored by the Gods plus Aura of Protection is amazing. Most of the time, we're taking no damage. It's just once in a while when we do that's giving us the 3, right? When we do fail our save, it will hurt a lot. But anyways, that feels cool. Pay no attention to those attacks against our AC. All right, I've got kind of a lot of final thoughts here, so let's get into them. The tier score for this build, if you just like take the HPR that they have against each hypothetical encounter and just average it into one number, we end up with a -1.55. Gosh, dang it. That means on average, these hypothetical combat encounters killed us every time. Just barely. We were so close. And I mean, hey, that's actually better than the World Tree Barbarian tank build that I did from a few months ago, barely. But right, I mean, okay, first and foremost, that World Tree Barbarian tank was still a better tank, I would argue, if a tank is supposed to be drawing enemy fire first and foremost to keep their allies safe, right? And yeah, it's probably not fair to even be comparing this build to tank builds because, like I've been saying, they're really a support first and kind of a tank second, or maybe like a tanky support. So how good of a tank would they be, really? Would they reliably be able to draw enemy fire? I mean, I think so. That aura is helping your allies a lot. And you can still heal, even while raging. Plus, your channel divinity options are pretty fantastic for control. You're throwing out a consistent sap debuff, you're probably knocking enemies prone, you might even be recklessly attacking, giving your enemies advantage to hit you, right? Everyone knows you're supposed to kill the support first, right? Especially if they're restraining or frightening your allies, especially if they're attacking recklessly. And yeah, your warding bond is doing some nice tank work all by itself. But if this build did draw fire consistently, would they do a good job of staying alive? Absolutely. Yeah, our AC is good, not great, but all the damage resistance and the crazy amazing saving throws are going to keep you on your feet forever. In most fights, I bet you're the last one to go down if it comes to it. And sure, we could have done other things to increase our survivability if we wanted to prioritize that over the saving throw stuff, right? The biggest question for me with this build really is, do we take those barbarian levels? Not being able to cast or concentrate on spells or wear heavy armor really hurts our survivability. I hate not having the bless spell up and not being able to cast the shield spell, right? Our AC would have been so much better without rage. And yeah, as I've said on this channel a bunch of times now, as great as resistance to all damage is, it's way better not to get hit than to take half damage, right? But again, I mean, the whole point of this build was to kind of say, look, you get really high AC, sometimes the enemies just don't attack you. But in that scenario, if you're vulnerable to things that target your saving throws, you might not be that awesome. And yeah, just pure survivability wasn't the number one priority of the build. It was saving throws. And in that area, we really excelled. And it was sort of the main reason that I wanted to go Barbarian in the end, for the strength and dexterity saving throw advantage. Plus, all that damage resistance is nice too, right? Maybe we would have been fine just using our luck points for like the strength, dex, and con saves, and then I don't have to worry about getting strength and dex from Barb, but that felt a little cheaty. Having advantage on every single save but Constitution, which again I think is impossible to get, just felt too great to pass up for the concept that we were going for here. And I mean, sure, there were other things we could have done to bolster our saving throws even more, right? Maybe Zealot Barbarian over Bear Barb would have been fun. That was a suggestion from Chris, but it felt like we needed damage resistance more than better saves at that point to me. Indomitable from Fighter is fantastic, but 9 levels is a massive investment. 14 levels of Monk for proficiency in all saves is an even bigger investment that I just didn't feel like we could make. War Wizard would have been awesome, but finding a way to get 13 intelligence? Maybe if we skipped Barbarian, took a Pact of the Blade Warlock dip, dumped Dexterity, and used a mount, still kept the heavy armor? Yeah, there are other alternatives. I guess in the end, the real question is, how effective of a character would this actually be in-game as we built it? I think they'd be great. They're not topping any damage charts or survivability charts outside of saving throw focused stuff, right? But they're bringing some solid support, including control, some respectable damage for a non-damage focused build, and are insanely durable. Would I play it? I think the time I would most want to play this character would be at like a table of new players and or at a table where not everyone goes hard into character optimization. In those scenarios, bringing some insane like DPR monster that just kills everything can be kind of lame. You don't necessarily want to be outshining and stealing the spotlight all the time, right? But maybe you still like to optimize your characters for fun and potency? Well, here you go. A build that optimizes helping all of your friends and is almost unkillable compared to everyone else, so they can keep helping all of their friends until the bitter end. And in true Treantmonk fashion, this one almost never fails a save. So, that's the build for the week. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun putting it together. I love you guys. Thank you so much for all that you do for me and for this channel. It really means the world to me. I hope you have a fantastic day and a really great week. And if you don't, I hope that you won't give up. Please hang in there. You've got this. I hope that you will do good and that you will be kind and that I see you again very soon. But until then, take care. Bye. I can't believe the news today. Oh, I can't close my eyes and make it go away. How long How long must we sing this song? How long? How long? 'Cause tonight we can be as one. Tonight. Oh man. U2 fans of the world. If you haven't seen, there's a new, it's not a documentary. Bono, the lead singer for U2, does a one-man show. And they've got it on Apple TV, I think. And I watched it last night. It was so good. So good. But I'm a huge fan. U2 is probably my favorite band of all time. And I read the book that he came out with called Surrender a 3 years ago. And so he's kind of taking excerpts from that book and sort of recreating them in a kind of dramatic fashion, and he sings. He does that song, Sunday Bloody Sunday, but in kind of a slow, like ballad way, and it's gorgeous. So check it out if you're a fan. Or if you're not, check it out, and maybe you'll become one. Slightly curmudgeon-y. It's not exact letting us detect friend. And we calculate damage lightning breath. I can't sneeze on camera because then Knox is going to put it in the outtakes and I'm going to look ridiculous. And there were 4 of them. And they're, I'm sure advantage can be a great way to heat or brain. And then, we could cast Fall Life at the 4th level. If you're vulnerable to saving throw, if you're vulnerable